me a little bit about credit. Where do you see some of the biggest issues? I mean, I think a lot of people aren't even able to maybe see their credit, or if they look, even if they get a report, they don't really know what they're looking at. Is that, tell me a little bit maybe about where you start with people and what they should be doing.
Well, step one is to actually monitor your credit. And what that means is you can pull a report once a year for free from annualcreditreport.com, which is your once-a-year government-run freebie. That's a good starting point. You can also get a monitoring service, which I highly recommend because identity theft is such a huge problem these days. And a monitoring service, every company from LifeLock to True Credit is a good idea because if anything occurs on your credit report, positive or negative, you'll be immediately notified by email of it. So even an inquiry from purchasing a car, you'll be notified of that. So step one is to obviously take a look at your credit report. And if you don't understand your credit report, because each credit report is different in its formatting, and I'll give you an example of that. You could be sitting in a mortgage company, and at the same time you could have a double sitting at a car dealership, and at the same time you could have a triple sitting at home and ready to press the button to pull a consumer report from home, a mortgage report from the mortgage company, and a car report from the car dealership. Press the button at the exact same time, and all three credit reports will be different. The scores will be different. So
that just makes it hard to kind of follow, doesn't it? I mean, isn't that what part of what makes this people feel like credit is a lot of smoke and mirrors? Is it's very difficult to understand what's going on when you have three different reports that look totally different?
Well, and it goes even deeper than that. For example, mortgage reports, there's 5 different types of mortgage reports. Some are more stringent than others. So a lot of it has to do with what the purpose of the credit pull is. For a mortgage, it's going to be looked at and gauged differently, meaning the information can be the same. It's going to be weighed differently than for a car purchase. The consumer report in general is always going to look the best because the credit bureaus are the 27th most complained about industry in the country. So in order to avoid
the 27th
most complained about industry in the country. That doesn't sound like a lot, but we have a lot of industries.
Sure. Well, Comcast being number one, I'm sure.
Yeah. but basically, the consumer report that you would pull is always going to look the best to avoid complaints. Okay, so the score is always going to be higher on a consumer report. The mortgage report tends to be, in my opinion, as pretty much the middle of the road, fair report. And the car, if you're pulling from for a car dealer to purchase a car, it's probably going to be your worst score because they make more money off of the loan than they do off of the car. So there's no incentive there. But that being said, one of the subjects I want to approach today is once you take a look at your credit report, you should take a look at all the information on there. Because one of the larger problems that we're seeing more and more of is called a file merge. It's not identity theft, it's file merge. And that's where another person's information will land on your credit report, good or bad. And why that occurs is the credit bureaus are trying to cast the widest net to gather as much information on individuals as possible. And a credit bureau report is simply a snapshot of the moment. So, in other words, when someone requests a credit report, at that moment, all the data banks are searched for as much information on the individual as possible, and then it's slapped onto a credit report. Okay, so they're trying to cast the widest net. Therefore, all three bureaus, only certain parts of the Social Security number have to match for the report. Only certain parts of the address and name have to match, as an example, to put the report together. So when you're casting that wide of a net, you're fishing for tuna, you're going to get a lot of dolphins as well. So if you have a common name, last name like Johnson, for example.
You're going to catch dolphins?
Yeah. What I'm saying is because the net is so wide, often other people's information will land on your report.
I get it. It's just always interesting. Like, you always try to save the dolphins, eat the tuna.
Exactly.
Tuna kind of get the shaft on that gig, don't they?
It's true. But once you pull your report, and if you see some information that is not yours on the credit report, good or bad, because I've seen it both ways. I've seen people that have good information from other people on the report as well. But if something goes bad with that individual's credit, you're going to pay the price. So anything that is not yours, you're going to want to dispute for sure.
And that is part of probably why their credit is 27th ranked or has the 27th most complaints, because if something comes up on your report that's not yours, now the burden is on you to get it off.
That is true. And recently, 60 Minutes did a 12-minute excerpt on how difficult it is to correct a credit report. You would think it'd be easy just to call the credit bureau up and say, hey, this information isn't mine. But one of the things you can start with is because remember, they're using certain parts of the name, certain parts of Social Security number, you want to tighten your credit report information. What that means is you want to dispute any previous addresses, so you want to get your address down to your current address only, any AKA or alias names. I have a funny story. When I first got into the credit industry a decade ago, I had pulled my credit report, and I had Attila Thiry on it, of course, which is my name, and there was a few other AKA names on it. One of them was Ahi Thing. AHI, last name Thing, and that was one of my alias names.
Really?
So you want to get rid of as much of the previous information, get it down to one address, get it down to one name, and that will, again, tighten the net. So you'll have less chance of getting other people's information on your credit bureau report. We see a lot of seniors and juniors with information from each other on there, a lot of siblings from information, and a lot of that has to do because they lived at the same address at one time. Mm-hmm. So you want to get rid of that information if you can to tighten the net again. The other thing...
So the dolphins can swim free.
Exactly, so dolphins can swim free. And the other thing to remember in regard to disputing information, again, it's not as simple as it may sound because a lot of the Bureau's work is now farmed out, so it's actually overseas. And they tie their hands as to what those people can do for you. They have very strict parameters as to what they can actually help you with. So what we have found the most effective way of disputing is by mail only, because you have a paper trail, number one, and you're causing the credit bureau to actually do its due diligence to actually research the information. So that's one thing that consumers, if they find something on their credit report that they should definitely consider, is disputing by mail.
Not email.
Not email, no. Remember, if you want to dispute online, which is, I think, in my opinion, one of the newest tricks from the bureaus, you're agreeing to their terms of dispute. So you're literally taking their due diligence out, because if you dispute information, you're unsuccessful. When you do it online, you're giving up your rights to dispute it in the future. That same piece of information. Not many people know that. And you're taking the due diligence out of the bureaus, because technically the way a proper dispute works is you mail it to the bureaus. Bureaus then go out and do the research and contact the originator or collector and whatnot. Then they get back to you, the client. Online, basically, it sends electronic signal through the bureaus right to the originator and collector. And of course, they're going to say, yes, he's in our data bank. They're not going to really do anything further than that. And if once you're in data bank, the information is verified, but now you've given up your right to future dispute. So that's one thing I do not recommend is online disputing or by email.
It's interesting. So mail. I mean, really sending out the old snail mail and...
It does not have to be certified. The credit bureaus generally do respond very effectively to by mail. One of the things that we like to do at our credit repair company is we send out multiple disputes to multiple addresses for the credit bureau. So if you really want to be certain that you're going to get a response, each credit bureau has multiple addresses where they process disputes. You want to send them to all those addresses to assure a quick response.
It's quite the process. I mean, you go through this, whether it's sending mail out to 5 addresses or 1 address or whatever it may be, and do you feel that it's going to get easier or harder for people to maintain their credit in the future?
Most definitely more difficult. One of the reasons, again, is because the credit bureaus are becoming more automated. And because they're becoming more automated, they're taking that human element out. An example of that is that each credit bureau has basically a computer optical reading machine. Every dispute that comes in the credit bureau is actually opened by this computer, and the picture of the envelope is taken, picture of the dispute is taken, and they compare it to every other dispute they've received. If they smell that it's from, for example, a credit repair company, it's going to get less weight on it. So one of the things we always recommend that a consumer do is handwrite your dispute, as an example. Handwrite the envelope, as an example. So there's tricks that you can put into play to get a more effective response, because once it goes into human hands, there's more of a chance that you're going to actually get the due diligence it deserves to resolve the issue. So
yeah, it's funny that the thing that's supposed to be protecting, credit, or making sure that, the people are getting good credit, or making sure at least that the people with good credit can get good loans. It's interesting how inundated they must be with just requests to get things right, when you think that they should get things right in the first place.
Well, and to be fair to the credit bureaus, they're dealing with over 200 million Americans' records. And even though I am a credit repair guy, I do give them some credit that they're doing a pretty good job. The problem is
they have like a 680,
something like. Well, factually, 79% of credit reports have errors on them. Now, whether those errors affect you negatively or not, that's a pretty high ratio. But nonetheless, considering how many Americans files are dealing with, they have a pretty decent track record. But if you're one of the people that was left to the wayside, yes, it is extremely frustrating if you're one of the people that's trying to resolve an issue with the credit bureaus. It is not easy. It is not fun.